Hey guys, so this is a little review of the Art Pro 1201. Now, quick disclaimer, this isn't the 1201, this is a smaller prototype. It's no secret, Adrian's already said on one of the comments to the 1201 release that there will be a range of sizes in the Art Pro series. I've been involved in some of the testing to give feedback on some of those sizes, and I don't have the 1201 with me, so I just thought to have something in my hands. I will just hold this and show you a couple of things that are relevant between the different sizes. So yeah, the testing process, as Adrian's already said, was pretty damn extensive. I was sent 3 different iterations of the 1201, and they all had slightly different design characteristics. The first one had incredible pump. It had this real sort of solid platform that whenever you push down for a pump, it just felt solid under your feet. Adrian's design brief was to try and create a foil that was a size up from the 1099 ART, more suitable for the heavier riders, or to give the non-heavy riders, I suppose, even more glide and pump in the tiny waves, or for light wind winging, downwinding, that sort of thing. So the design brief was to try and keep it as fast as possible, to make it feel lively, because we knew this was going to be a big wingspan, so we wanted it to stay lively in terms of turning and maneuverability. But the most important thing was to have that ability to pump and link waves, or to pump to do whatever you're doing, really. The pumping was a real key aspect of the design brief. So the first iteration that I was sent had a really good pump. The turning was okay, and the speed was okay, but they made some tweaks and came up with, well, I thought at the time couldn't get any better. It had so much better speed, so much better glide, it was just incredible. Lost a little bit on the pumping side, especially for the heavier riders. So the next iteration was a little bit of an increased chord and a few tweaks which increased the pump dramatically, made it so much easier to pump, but we lost a little bit of the top end, so it wasn't quite as fast as we wanted it, and the glide lost a little bit of glide. So I then moved country. I was living in Oman. I was changing my job as well as my my place where I live, so I missed out on being sent the final version. Luckily for me, I was lucky enough to go to the Sonova Board Dealers Conference in Thailand, where I met up with Adrian and a lot of the other Axis team finally, and had the opportunity to try and use the real final version of the 1201, and it absolutely blew me away, just beyond my wildest expectations. They created a foil that has got the best of everything, and I'm not kidding. Its speed and glide is just phenomenal. I would say it's pretty damn close to the speed of the 1099, if not as fast. It's very difficult to say because I haven't used them back to back, but I was just so impressed with the top end. The glide, it just glides forever. I mean, it's got the best glide of any foil, literally any foil that I've ever used. Its turning, its maneuverability is actually really good for a foil of its size. Now, to unlock that maneuverability, or that performance in carving, I would strongly recommend that you use it with an advanced fuse and the shortest fuse that you can personally feel comfortable with. That really does help to unlock it in terms of maneuverability. and you can carve it really, really nicely. Yeah, you're never going to be able to carve it as tight as a really short wingspan foil, but I think the carving also takes a little bit of time to get used to it. It's very stable in its carving. It's not the type of foil that will try and buck you off if you try and turn it too quickly. It's just very smooth and predictable in its turning, and yeah, I've really gotten to like it. The more I use this foil, the more I unlock in terms of its performance, so don't judge it on its first use. It really does grow on you, or at least you get to, like I say, you get to unlock its potential. Now, the pumping and the low ends for me is still the highlight of this foil. Adrian increased the cord a little bit in the center, I think the center third of the foil, and it's nicely tapered towards the wingtips, which helps with the turning. But the low end of this foil, it shouldn't be as good for a foil whose top end is so good. When I first got on the final version, I was pumping around and oh damn, I've lost it, and I just tried a couple of little pumps and I actually managed to dig myself out of that hole with hardly any effort. And that is a real feature of this foil, that you can pump to accelerate, so the top end speed of pumping is phenomenally fast. Not like a tiny foil, but for a big foil it's very fast. But if you slow down or you make a mistake, apart from something like the PNG 1150, which is the easiest foil to correct mistakes with, pumping this foil is not only great in its top ends when you've got speed, but it's also incredibly easy to pump when it's going slower. And I think, personally, this is one of my little theories, is that Dylan Bez, who pumped and linked waves with this foil, well not this one, the real other one, for 3 hours and 6 or 7 minutes, something like that. And I had a chat with him in Thailand, and he said that one of the things he concentrates on when he's pumping long durations is that he just tries to keep the foil just above its stall speed, and that way he can put in minimum effort, pump for the maximum duration of time. And it makes perfect sense, because this foil allows you to do that. It allows you to slow down. You don't have to be going super fast when you're pumping to keep it, well, to generate the lift it needs to keep being on foil, which is the case of most smaller foils and certainly the really high aspect foils. They need that speed to generate the lift to keep on foil while you're pumping, but not the case with this foil. You really can slow down considerably. Again, not as slow as the 1150, just, you know, I just want to make sure that everybody's clear about that. So, speed and glide, phenomenal. Turning, maneuverability, really, really seriously good. Pump, just out of this world. The range of this foil is second to none. I mean, it's been put out there by many people that it sits somewhere in between the 1300 and the 1050 in its range. It's definitely faster than both of those foils. Its maneuverability is way better. It obviously doesn't have the low end lift of the 1300, and I don't think, I'll put it the other way actually, I think the 1050 will foil at a slower speed. So those two foils, you know, they have their place still. This doesn't take away from those, but it does sit in the middle very nicely. I would say it's a little bit more advanced to use, but still super easy to use. I wouldn't put a beginner on it. I would still say that the 1300 and the 1050 are the best foils to learn to do, you know, whether it's light wind winging, downwinding, subfoiling, or even prone foiling on tiny little bumps. But it won't be long before you can progress onto the 1201 and gain all of its performance benefits. Now, the reason why I wanted to show you this one which is just it's going to be one of the smaller sizes, is just to point out this phrase that Adrian keeps using, the straight median line. Now what that means is that from wingtip to wingtip, the thickest part of the foil is in a straight line all the way across. Now I don't know enough about foil design to be able to tell you the ins and the outs about how that works, but what I can tell you is that it definitely gives really predictable performance, and possibly the most impressive part is that out of all the foils that have got this straight median line, and some of the previous iterations of the 1201 didn't have this straight median line, but those that did, if you pop a wingtip, it seems to have very, very little effect on the ride whatsoever. In fact, I was light wind winging, popped a wingtip a few times, didn't even know until I reviewed the GoPro footage afterwards. And once I realised that that was happening, I was able to then sort of be aware of it while I was riding, and downwinding a fair few times. I noticed popping a wingtip, or even doing, I don't know how much of a breach occurs because it's under your board, but you can feel it. And I know for a fact that I've breached a few times and been able to save it, full-on breaches. So a few times the board hitting the water and glancing back up and getting back onto foil straight away. A couple of times even saving it before the board hits the water. Now I'm beginning to develop a little bit of a technique for that. So when I feel it happen, I immediately push my weight down on my back foot, transfer my weight back a little bit, and then as the foil re-engages in the water to create the lift, I then transfer my weight back onto my front foot, or at least to distribute my weight evenly between both feet again. So if you breach, slam down on the back foot and then transfer weight on your front foot as the lift comes back up again to prevent another breach. So yeah, that was a really, really cool byproduct of this design. So yeah, overall incredibly impressed by the 1201. Right, if you have any questions about the 1201, please hit me up. I'll do my best to answer. And yeah, exciting times are here. Okay, so I'm going to show you 3 lots of foiling disciplines, starting with downwinding here, and then going on to some winging, and finally some surfing. And it's all with the 1201, obviously. And yep, in this clip I am, as you can see, using full drive to get me up on foil, and occasionally to help me stay on foil when either it's super flat section or just, you know, correcting a mistake. But for the most part, as you can see, doing a lot of pumping. But the point is that the 1201 is so good at utilising even the smallest amounts of energy that even though I'm pumping a lot, it's literally a quarter or less the amount of energy or effort that I'm putting into pumping compared to, say, flat water pumping. It really just blew my mind at how easy it is to keep the glide going just by pumping. So there, yeah, I'm using full drive back onto foil and now pumping again. Occasionally catching nice little glides, but like I say, such little amount of effort needing to pump the 1201 to keep it foiling even in the most marginal conditions. But the beauty is that when you get good conditions, it can really cope with the you know, the extra speed and power that bigger swell can provide. And now obviously it gets to a certain point and you'll want to change down to a smaller foil anyway, but I was really impressed with the range of the 1201 for downwinding conditions. Okay, and now over to winging. This was around about 12 knots, and even though the swell was better than the last clip, it was still small. There are some white caps at least in this one, and where I would normally be doing quite a lot of pumping to link between the good sections, the 1201 just it allowed you to glide all the way through sections that you thought there's no way I'm going to have to pump here, or I'm going to have to carve back and link up to another bit of swell that's coming from behind. But absolutely not. It just allowed me to keep gliding through to the next section, build your speed back up again with that section, and then slingshot you forward or keep the glide going forward to the next one. And it was just literally like, I've never experienced it before with any other foil, that you can just keep going. You barely lose any speed whatsoever. And when you do need to pump, it's amazing because you just feel that you're able to gain that extra speed. You're not just pumping to keep going, you are accelerating as you pump. It really is effortless. Now, I personally feel that the 1201 pairs with a lot of different rear stabilizers. I've used it so far mostly with the Progressive 350, the Progressive 300, and the Skinny 45 and 40, and I love them all with it, I really do. For me personally, the 40 needs to be in pretty powered up conditions, otherwise I lose a little bit of sort of pump performance and come down off the mast a little bit quicker. But with the 45, it's an absolute dream. The P300 obviously super fast and much better turning, and the P350, like the Skinny 45, are amazing for pumping and lighter wind performance. Turns pretty good. This particular clip was the P350. Okay, and finally we have foil surfing with the 1201. Now, as you can see on this particular day, it was super small. The bumps were tiny, but the 1201 just deals with it so well. Yes, I'm using foil drive again to help me get up, and occasionally e-foiling to link up the bumps, but as you'll see in a second when I come off the back of this particular bump, I pump a long way, and if you want to pump long distances to connect waves, this is the foil for you. It's absolutely amazing. The least amount of effort for the most amount of distance covered. It's a really relaxing cadence. Copes best pumping at speed, but it can cope very easily if you make a mistake, for helping you to recover from that mistake. Very unusual for such a high aspect foil. I'm having to stay well away from the shoulder here in this spot, because not only is it a shallow reef, but it's super low tide on this particular spot. But even keeping such a long distance away from the critical section, it just taps into the energy so nicely. And yeah, occasionally you have to pump to keep things going, but that's probably a little bit of technique, a little bit of me keeping the foil closer to the surface of the water. While I'm trying to get used to a foil, or while I'm filming, it's obviously a little bit more difficult to have perfect technique. And yeah, just a few more shots for me, showing you the conditions that I've been using it in. It's a real all-rounder, it really is. Pumping to connect waves, wing foiling in light to moderate winds, downwinding in super small to to medium-sized swell. This really is an outstanding foil, and one of my firm favourites for flat water pumping as well. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed this, and let me know if you've got any questions.